Draft time, draft time, draft time. It's weird though, right? Because the draft's in Cleveland, but the Browns got like the 26th pick. We don't really know where these dominoes are going to fall and whether the Browns should really use all of these picks. So it's like the most un-Cleveland draft ever that happens to be in Cleveland. It's kind of weird. And to talk about it, I got my guy G Bush here from 92.3 The Fan to talk about this. G, how you doing, man?
What's up, man? We back in the building, man. Good to be back. You know what it is.
Yes, sir. So this draft, right? It's weird for the Browns at least, right? Because if you look at what's in this draft, a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of left tackles, a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of wide receivers. All three areas, Browns have absolutely no need. You can maybe say a late round need for wide receiver, maybe looking towards the future. But we know what the Browns' needs are. It's all defensive, and this ain't really that great of a defensive draft. Plus, you got a 26th pick. So if you're Andrew Berry, what is your philosophy going in this draft if you were the GM of the Browns?
Man, you kind of hit on all the main points. And the crazy part about that, if you piggyback it with the defense, is it's not that great of a defensive free agency either. So usually, generally speaking, if you know what you need going into the offseason, you can either address that in free agency, you can address that in the draft, right? You at least got two areas you can do. I don't think those are the best areas at this point to get defensive players, and then plus throw on top of that, one of the positions, even the positions that you need, one of them is linebacker, and they're not going to be in a position that I don't think that the front office and analytics likes paying first round linebackers and then signing them to extensions. So the Browns, I don't think would draft a linebacker unless they were absolutely floored by him and they thought he was going to be, the next coming of, I don't know, Ray Lewis. But even so, I don't think analytics, the way they have it, I don't think that they value that in their defense. I think if they find that you can get solid defensive linemen up front and guys that can cover in the back end, the linebackers all they have to be is serviceable. Can they make tackles in open field, and can they cover the rudimentary guys, right? Not the Kelce's or any of those guys, because those guys are going to get all open anyway. But can they do those things? So for me, I look at it like this. You mentioned receiver. You mentioned that they could look to the future for that, but I'll tell you this: if there's some guys that fall to me, right, I'm all for taking special guys. I'm all for taking, if it was a receiver and they love him and he's great, I'm all for taking a special guy. I'm all for taking the corners that they got on the board. I'm all for that. And here's what I am available to do: if I can get a young guy and I can move him in a trade, if that 26 pick can net me somebody today that is young, and I can get in a package like the Pittsburgh Steelers did with Minkah Fitzpatrick, you might want to go ahead and think about that, because I like players now. If the draft is not where you want it to be, package it up, move up, and try to get somebody that you've identified out there that you can control for a couple years here and get them under a cheap contract.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting too, because overall for the offseason, right, the philosophy has always been potential, right? Because you want to be able to grow into something worth being, worth growing. That's what Browns haven't been at. Now they're at that point to where they're grown, and it's interesting, right? Some fans are still kind of in that mindset. But I think the philosophy has to change now to more or less what you're saying, bird in hand, right? You want the bird in the hand. You want the sure thing. We can give up on the potential, maybe you do, but the bird in the hand is going to be what's going to help you now, because the next 2 years are everything for this team, right? You got everybody under contract, that whole offensive line, minus Wyatt Teller, who you can extend and put in rolling cap. So you got options there with him and Nick Chubb. You're not going to have a ton of issues keeping this core together within the next 2 years. And if you're the Browns, you got to attack this window, right? You've been saving up cap space since 2016, rolling over cap, so you can have this opportunity. The bird in hand is going to be what's most important for this team. And it's going to be interesting to see how that manifests itself in the draft, because as I've noticed, the Browns have 9 picks. Don't think they got 9 roster spots for young players. So What's that going to change? And what do you see the Browns doing, right? Because I think logistically, they're going to have to do something with those drawing draft picks. Now it's kind of funny, right? We used to think all these draft picks is a positive thing. Now the Browns have 9 draft picks, and it's not really a positive thing because you have nowhere to put them. You know what I mean? It's like having all these clothes, but you ain't got no room in your dresser. So the Browns need to find a way to maneuver and find some space on their roster so they're not just selecting guys they know can't make the roster. So what do you think the Browns are going to do there? Because they got to get rid of some of these picks. They can't draft all 9 of these guys.
Yeah, it's the old good old Bill Belichick type thing. Some of these picks, and I'll say this. I'll go on the record and always say I'm a little pessimistic. If you ask me as a general manager, what my philosophy would be for me in the draft, I'm looking for home runs, no matter what wherever they may come. If I can get a home run at a position I really don't need, the home runs take care of themselves, right? I'm a person that likes to go get what I need to get in the draft, and if I can't go get that, I got to go find another place to go do it. So when you're talking about the draft and having all these picks, Patriots traditionally do this. They punt on certain things. So those 4th round, 5th round picks, the Browns will package them up with somebody else and move out of this draft and go, get to, punt to next year and kind of carry some draft spots over for next year in hopes that, hey, we got 2 4th round picks this year. Maybe if we don't got the area that we really need to address, maybe defense, let's go ahead and see if we can move back and get a couple more draft picks next year and look at because they identified a board with juniors and seniors. So there's a couple guys that we really like coming out next year. We like this depth in the draft class next year. Let's see if we can go ahead and punt, get some more assets, move those to next year. But for me, I look at it like this. I would be looking at all, everything that they need to do to make the team better. Because like you said, it was a very strong point when you just brought that up. This team is in a different phase. And what you can't have is sustainability is a fickle thing. Sustainability doesn't mean that you can win for 7 years. Sustainability might only mean a year and a half. Sustainability might be 2, depending on what your roster and who you got. So the Browns, to me, are in a 2-year window, and they need to accumulate talent to get that done.
Yeah, and when I say 2-year window, I think a lot of people get confused. Like, oh, well, you think the Browns are going to have these next 2 years and it stink again? No, they're not going to stink again. It's just these are the 2 years where, like, if a team was going to go 14-2 out of this city, or if a team was going to do something crazy, these are probably the most likely next 2 years that it's going to happen is in this kind of a window here. And I also think the key to sustainability is not getting so wrapped up. And I think a lot of people see youth and they're like, oh, that's going to help this team be sustainable long term. I think gambling on youth is how you damage your stability on long term, especially when it's on youth that it's not coming from your building. And the issue that the Browns have right now, and it's not really an issue, is that they have all of these young guys, right, that they're going to want to give contracts to. Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield, Wyatt Teller, Ronnie Harrison, you would hope has a good year and kind of pans out with Cleveland. All of these guys, Denzel Ward's coming up. That's going to be expensive. Like, all of these things are coming up for them. You have all of these young players you're already kind of tied to. And there's just not room to bring in somebody else's young player in free agency and sign them to some long-term contract and get caught up with them with that. Because if you look at like Houston, or if you look at like Jacksonville, when you sign players that you think are going to grow into one level, right, in free agency or whatever it is, and they just don't pan out and they're young and those are long contracts, that's what destroys your rebuild, right? That's what will blow it up. That's how the Texans went from like 24 points up on the Chiefs to the laughing stock in the NFL right now. And the Jacksonville Jaguars were Saxonville a couple of years ago, almost going to make the Super Bowl. Now they're drafting Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall with Urban Meyer as their head coach. Like, talk about dropping drastically from where you were. So if you're the Browns, you have to be mindful of that. And I know people think, oh, you're just going to waste all the cap on these old dudes. No, you're going to give old guys short-term deals. And that's going to be able to keep your cap situation not complex, and that's what you want. You don't want your overly complicated cap situation, because then you end up like St. Louis. I mean, not St. Louis, New Orleans, right?
Yes.
Where it's $75 million over the cap, and everybody's looking at them like, what we gonna take from y'all? So that is where you don't want to end up, and you can end up there very fast by handing out long 4-year deals when you already got a bunch of dudes on it. Let alone, let's say you get into some cap trouble and now you can't re-sign a Nick Chubb or Denzel Ward or heavens forbid a Baker Mayfield, your franchise quarterback or somebody like that, or maybe you have to get rid of an Odell faster than you want to, or a Jarvis. Right now you got the dudes you want. They're relatively young. You need to add some veterans to that pile that are going to be willing to take those short-term deals, that are going to be willing to have more of an uncertain future, because their future is probably going to be up in a few years.
Exactly.
That's the situation the Browns find themselves in that I think they need to take advantage of. But I feel like there's kind of a struggle between, let's get these young dudes we've always got. Let's build. Let's be good for the next 10 years. It's like you can be great for the next 10 years because you already got a core. You know what I mean?
The build young guy stuff is, and I get it. We play Madden. I like to see young boys go up too. Like you're like, wow, I got this rookie. He's balling. He just went up 2 ticks in awareness. I started him all 16 games. I moved him to the dime package. He comes off the edge. You're like, man, I get it. You want those young pieces, but you said it right. You said St. Louis. They're the Rams now. LA, but same thing. You had Ty Gurley, right? You had Aaron Donald, right?
So what did they do? They brought in all of these young free agents that they signed for too much money or traded for all these assets, and now they can't even retain their own guys. It's become that part of the problem for the Rams, right? Where it was all young free agents. And look, I'm all for young free agents. I think the last season you were going to do young free agents for a little while was last season, and they did that. Right?
Yeah, you got OBJ.
Jack Conklin, you got all these guys in free agency last year, the young guys who are going to hopefully pan out to be well on long-term deals. I just think that's the last season you can do that because, everybody wants to talk about what the cap's going to be in 2023. We have no idea what the cap's going to be next year, the year after. We don't know if this situation is going to be over next year.
Reportedly, it's going down.
Yeah, it's going down this year to 185. So you don't know what the situation is. This is not a time to make a ton of long-term deals because, again, you don't get the mortgage, as you like to use these analogies. You don't sign the mortgage when you don't know what your credit score is. Like,
or they don't give you the mortgage. They don't give you that mortgage when they be like, let's see your job history. Oh, you've been here 2 years? No. We don't give mortgages to people who with 2 years at work. We need to know what you're working with. Like we need to know.
We need to have some security on what this is going to be if you're going to invest long term. And I think that's the issue the Browns are going to run in with this draft. I just see it being kind of awkward. You know what I mean? Like they're going to have the first round here. I think it's very likely that the Browns don't make a pick on day one, that they trade out. Because I don't know if you think of, but is there any player in this draft you love so much you'd be willing to trade up for?
The crazy. I like Micah Parsons, the kid from Penn State. But here's the problem: he's a linebacker. He's a monster. But here's the thing: he's a linebacker. So, are you going to? How highly are they going to pick a linebacker? How highly are they going to invest? If you draft a first round linebacker, he got to be an all pro right now. Like he got to be an all pro today. Like you can't just work him in. Like if you're a linebacker, like Darius Leonard, he came in with the Colts and he started day one. White out of Tampa Bay, he's a day one starter. Devin Bush came in and was contributing very well, with the Steelers before he got hurt. So you need playmakers that's going to play day one. And are you playing the scheme that can really highlight what that person does best, right? And if you can't, you're just like, well, we're going to have to pass on that. Like we're not going to trade up to go get a guy like that. And we don't even value that position. Then you start to think like, okay, well, what other positions are there? You're like, okay, we can go after a corner. There's some help we need at defensive tackle, but they already have Billings, at the third round pick from last year who opted out. So I don't know if they like him. if they're gonna not let you, if they're not gonna bring Larry Ogunjobi back. So it's a very precarious situation. You know, they got a lot of money involved and invested in tight ends. You know, they've addressed those things. The receiving room has a lot of money attached to it. So are they really going to play another first round receiver? If they can get a spectacular guy, if they think that there was one there, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But that's why for me, I just think this is the draft of any draft that the Browns would literally be on the phones with other teams while people are moving. And this is the year of deals and trades. I don't know how they came up with that. I don't know how they just figured this year that we're going to just trade people and quarterbacks. But if it was any time to figure out if there's a trade to make your team better, I think this is the year.
Especially a year where the cap's going down, where you might have a lot of cap casualties coming up on a workout bonus date in March. So you might want to. Yeah, well, you might want to be able to, say, hey, you don't got to cut him. We'll send you a 5th round pick. Those kind of deals. That's how the Patriots got Randy Moss, right?
Yep.
Those kind of deals happen all the time in the NFL, and I think that might be a good use of the Browns draft picks. But we'll see what they do. G. Bush, thank you for coming on later. And again, let them know to find you, man.
All right, man. You definitely can find me at GBush91 on Twitter. You can also find me on the Barbershop, the radio show on 92.3 The Fan. You can listen to that show on the radio.com app as well. So I'm on every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And look out for the live that's coming. You can check that out at gbush.live. And you can check that out. And I'll be on every single Saturday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. We'll be giving that to you after the regular show. So go ahead and do that and check out the Barbershop on YouTube as well.
Definitely, guys. Check it out. G. Bush, thank you for coming on, man. Y'all have a good day.
Peace.